Joshua Dobbs has dragged the Minnesota Vikings out of purgatory, and as we all could have guessed, Jameis Winston ended up throwing 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in the game. You know, I'd like to think that in an alternate universe somewhere out there, J-Bo's LASIK surgery ended up working, and he's throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns per game. But unfortunately for everyone, that is not the world that we live in. And so today's show is going to be awesome, as I'm starting off handing off some of my favorite NFL midseason takes. Right afterwards, we'll be channeling our inner heat miser and snow miser, baby, throwing out some hot and cold teams from a few leagues around the country. And finally, some of the Goonies at HTF, including myself, will be giving y'all some of our favorite sports memories and why they mean so much to us. So don't go anywhere, because the most wholesome episode of the Combine ever kicks off right on the other side of this break.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
My beloved Combine enthusiasts, like I said, am going to be throwing some of my favorite NFL takes your way. And here to confirm or dispute these takes are our diehard Bucs fan, an absolute gym rat, the man, myth, and legend, Patrick Previty, alongside the Tom Brady reppin', big boy steppin', friendly neighborhood Steelers fan, Jared Fox. How you doing, boys?
We're loving life.
Oh man, it's great to be on Combine, man.
What'd you
There's
think
no
of my
other way I'd spend my Mondays.
Exactly? What'd you think of my Stone Cold Steve Austin intro for you?
Oh, that was phenomenal.
You know, I'm so glad you thought that way. And as much as I'd like to keep, jumping in this, we have some NFL to talk about,
Yeah, we
boys.
do.
We have a few of these midseason takes that I am very, very excited about. And the first one I thought was the coldest of the hot takes, but I still think it's considered a hot take. And as you all know, the Pastronaut is currently making headlines at every turn, despite only wearing the purple and gold for 14 days as of today. Joshua Dobbs is 2-0 as a Viking. Down the stretch, the Vikings only face 3 teams who are currently above 500, 2 of which being a home and away matchup against the Detroit Lions. That, my friends, is why I believe the Vikings, led by Joshua Dobbs, will be making the NFL playoffs this year. And with a lack of competition in the NFC, this team is poised to earn themselves a wild card spot. And currently, Minnesota's only competition comes in the form of the Washington Commanders and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both of which the Vikings hold a 2-win advantage over. Now, gentlemen, I don't think this is too hot of a take like I mentioned, but speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I think that the Vikings, I think it's a good take. I think that the Vikings definitely can make the playoffs with Josh Dobbs. I mean, he's looked like, now listen, take it easy on me, but these past 2 weeks, he's looked like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I know, it's crazy, but he actually has been balling. Like, the Saints were a top 5 defense in passing, or in total yards coming into this game, and Joshua Dobbs diced them up.
Oh, yeah.
So, like you said, I mean, I don't think that the Bucs or the Commanders are going to really be able to catch him, especially with Jettis coming back. So
I hope
We'll
you
see.
realize what color we're
We're-
bleeding right now.
we're all
all on
wearing-
this set. We're all bleeding
we're
red,
all
white, and
matching too.
pewter.
We got the jeans, we got the Bucs jerseys. I mean,
The head-to-head loss against the Bucks is the only thing that concerns me
Yeah.
about the Vikings not making the playoffs. But right now, it looks like a lock. I mean, they're already slotted in at number 7.
Yeah.
yeah.
And although they did lose head-to-head against the Bucs, that was first week of the NFL season. I do think there's some growing pains. And with Josh Dobbs, the fact that he's coming in and he's 2-0 off rip, not even 2 weeks as a Viking, I think there's a lot Vikings fans can look forward to.
Yeah.
But I want to move on. Mr. Jared Fox, I know you're very, very much into this one. And next on the agenda is the fact that 11 of 16 AFC football teams are currently sitting at a record of 500 or above, which is ridiculous. But that means that it's still anybody's game for playoffs. I'm here to tell you, though, you can all turn your attention to the AFC North because 3 of these teams, not 1 or 2, but 3 will be making the AFC playoffs, with the worst division in the division being the Cincinnati Bengals, holding a surprising record of 5-4. I'd be surprised if any of these teams end up with a record of below 9-8. Mr. Fox, know the Steelers are your boys, and that is your division. So what are your thoughts on this?
So I think that we will have 3 teams that make the playoffs, but I don't think one of them is going to be the Browns. Because
Really?
I think the Bengals are going to have that second half push where they somehow find their way into the playoffs, and then they probably will make some noise in the playoffs because I know they lost T. Higgins. They're out, or he was out this week. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out for. Jamar Chase has been dealing with an injury, but I think that's just the only reason why they really lost yesterday against the Texans. I mean, they should have won that game. Like, they had the lead, and they blew it. So the Steelers are obviously going to make the playoffs. They're the best team in the NFL, obviously. The Ravens are going to find a way to make it, unfortunately. And then I think the Bengals will also find a way. And I think that Deshaun Watson is going to lead the Browns to the stinker. He sucks.
Whoa, they just won yesterday against a Ravens team that's super hot.
The
I
Ravens,
will say, I do think the Browns are wildly inconsistent.
I do too.
But they were able to stay afloat with the backup quarterback, though. I mean, I
Okay,
understand
this is fair.
what you're saying, but like
I
they're
think-
still 6-3.
I think, though, the one thing going for them is they have a very high rush yards per game and quite a strong O-line. Without Nick Chubb, they're still averaging, I believe, 135.6 yards per game on the ground.
I mean, Kareem Hunt has
ridiculous.
scored in like 4 straight games or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, he's been eating, and then Jerome Ford as well has just been looking like a mini Nick Chubb. So
I'm not going to go as far to say as all 4 teams are making the playoffs, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
I don't think it can happen.
I
But-
could see it, honestly.
I could see it, but I don't think it's plausible.
Who out of the Bills and Dolphins isn't going to make it then?
Exactly.
So I think
I would
that
say
both
I would
of
say
them are
even
going
the
to make it.
Bills.
Bills are
think the
sitting
Bills
at
aren't
5-4
gonna
right
make
now.
it?
The
Well,
Bills
I
are
mean,
sitting
if
at
the
5-4
Bengals-
right
But
now.
they play tonight.
They do.
Yes,
play
they do
tonight.
play tonight. They play the Broncos, though. It could be a little bit of a sleeper fest. Bills might be able to run the
Stop.
table on them, but we'll see. Moving
the
on
Broncos
now,
been playing good football.
I do really want to talk about
Kill
this
the
one
noise.
Just
because
throwing that out there. Just throwing
Kill
that
the
out there.
noise.
I
see.
Kill
I
the
do
noise.
know
At least
that
cover.
a few NFL analysts have already made this take, but I think it's too early to make it up front. I still think time needs to develop, but I wanted to throw it out there anyways. With the regular season rapidly approaching its conclusion, the NFL Honors is slowly making itself known, with early picks for award winners following right thereafter. Now, although this has been a rather tight season in terms of the MVP conversation, I see a lot of fingers pointing towards Tua Tagovailoa. I see Tyreek Hill, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, guys like this. However, I believe that in the weeks to come, we'll see the Ohio State alum C.J. Stroud start to make an appearance in this conversation, cement himself as a true MVP candidate. Stroud holds a 63.2 QBR, go along with 7.5 touchdown to interception ratio, which is he leads the league in. He's ridiculous right now.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he's managed to lead a Houston team that's finished the last year at 3-11 and 1 to right now they're sitting above 500 at midseason. It's incredible what he's doing, and although you can make the argument that D'Amico Ryans has had a lot of play into it, he's brand new, he might have changed this system, I do think a lot of this love should fall on Stroud's shoulders. I think he's done very, very good. So, real quick, I wanted to ask, what do y'all think of this?
You go first.
If he keeps playing like this, yeah, sure. I mean, give him the MVP. In all honesty, like,
Yeah.
he's played more than well enough to earn that. I mean, 50 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's unbelievable, even for a rookie, for anybody in the NFL. And he's just kind of given the Texans a spark.
Yeah.
So
That they've never
I'm all
seen.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least since Deshaun Watson when he was in his prime.
And
It felt
Mr.
like.
Fox, real quick, your thoughts?
I think C.J. Stroud is top 3 in the MVP race right now to this day.
I think that's a little close, but I understand what you're going for. Ladies and gentlemen, fans at home, this has been Hot Takes with Hot Guys, and you might want to sit in your seat for a little bit longer because we're going to be talking about some hot teams right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, as promised, welcome to Icy Hot, the segment in which we dive into some hot and cold teams across professional sports. Now, although the NFL is my thing, here to discuss some NHL teams is the GOAT of GOATs, the hockey mastermind, the lovely Frankie Noble. And here to talk the NBA is the one, the only co-host of Nighttime and avid Ty Patton hater, Maddie Glass. Ladies, how are we feeling on this fine afternoon?
That was a lot. I don't know if I agree with everything. How come she's the NHL GOAT? I'm not the NBA GOAT.
Because she's come on for 2 consecutive shows and absolutely nailed it.
Well, she hasn't done this one yet.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to kill it.
Let's speak too soon.
Okay, speaking of Frankie killing it, we're not doing that first. Jumping into it, the NBA has been a mix of emotions, and thus far, a few teams have started off weaker than expected. But some teams have gotten a little bit of a head start. They kind of jumped the gun, and they're looking very, very good, with one of these teams being the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yes.
Currently holding a 7-game win streak. This team has been nothing short. 8-game win streak?
7. You're right.
7. Okay, I was right. Look, what are we doing here? This team has been nothing short of dominant, and there's little hope of denying it. And I want to throw it right into Miss Maddie Glass, who has all the information on them.
Yeah, so the Sixers, they lost opening night to the Bucks by 1, and since then they have been the best team in the NBA. They're 8-1. That's the best record in the NBA since the Nuggets did lose last night, so they are not tied for first. They are first. They're top 10 in offense and defense, and they traded James Harden, and it's looking great since. Even though James Harden didn't play a game in the regular season, I think it's just getting him out. They've been on fire. Tyrese Maxey has been a superstar. He's averaging like 28 points, scored 50 last night on the Pacers, and they had some statement wins against the Bucks. They beat, not the Bucks, sorry, the Celtics. They beat Atlanta a couple times, and I just think that maybe the Sixers, I feel like every year they're just frauds and they suck in the playoffs, which might still happen, probably will still happen, but so far this season they have looked dominant, especially with everything that happened in the offseason with them, and they're just coming out firing. Nick Nurse, new coach, I think he's doing really well, and I'm excited to see how far. Tyrese Maxey is probably going to be an all-star this year, I'd say.
Yeah. The 76ers do look phenomenal, but
Yes.
on the other hand, one team in the NBA has really dug themselves into a hole, and despite their best efforts, they cannot dig themselves out, and that being
Yeah.
the Washington Wizards, Miss Maddie Glass.
The Wizards, so they don't have the worst record in the NBA right now, but I think they will at the end of the season. And, a lot of the other teams, they have hope to go on a little run. They have a lot of young talent. Like the Pistons, they're on an 8-game losing streak, but they have a lot of talent, young talent. The Wizards don't. I mean, they have Jordan Poole, I guess, but if you see, I did have the Jordan Poole negative highlight. I made Wizards lowlights when he turns around, does the Steph Curry look-away 3, and just bricks the shot. But the Wizards, they're kind of just comedy. They're 2-7. They're actually a okay offensive team. They score a lot, but they're not good at anything that makes a good basketball team. They suck at rebounding. They're last in rebounding, suck at defense. And I think the only bright star is the rookie they drafted in the first round last year, Kulaba. He's been a bright star. He played with Wemby last year, and he's been really good so far. But it's just Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. It's just not I wouldn't say a winning duo.
Yeah.
The trash bros.
I do think Washington is in a rebuild, so
They are,
I
but
do think. Go ahead.
They are, but they're just funny. Usually rebuilds, it's okay, a lot of the Pistons, they have Cade, they have Jalen Duran, but the Wizards are okay, Jordan Poole shoot as much as you want, Kuzma, score. It's
Yeah.
just I can't imagine it's super entertaining to watch if you're a fan.
Moving forward, because I'm really excited right now. I'm jumping for joy. I'm bouncing off the walls right now. Absolute electric factory.
Okay.
We're moving into the NFL. Someone left a window open because it is freezing, but nobody did. It's the Carolina Panthers. They stink. After trading away their entire franchise for a college superstar quarterback, Bryce Young, he has failed at every turn, posting an incredibly low record of 1-8. Young currently ranks 26 in passing yards among all active NFL quarterbacks, whilst the offense ranks 30th in rushing yards, which is incredibly poor, 813 rushing yards, which is it's ridiculous. If you're going to go out and get a guy like this, you can't be stinking it up. I think that a big problem that's in Carolina right now all resides in their offensive line. Bryce Young is getting hit on almost every drop back, but I don't think that's too much of an excuse given that I've seen with my own eyes on TV other quarterbacks with the same situation where they have a poor offensive line where they can make something happen out of it. I think he just needs time to develop, but as of right now, they are freezing cold.
I think, obviously the surrounding talent isn't good, but you'd like to see more from a number 1 pick,
Yeah.
especially when C.J. Stroud, who was picked after him, is absolutely killing it and probably the best rookie quarterback of all time. It's just probably not a great time to be a Panthers fan, especially if they don't have their first-round pick.
Yep,
coming
and
up
now
this
the Bears
season.
are looking straight down the pipe at a first overall
Quarterback.
pick almost,
Yeah.
which is ridiculously good for them, horrible for the Panthers. But although the Panthers are freezing, the Minnesota Vikings are drenched in sweat, baby. It's currently 105 degrees in Minnesota, and it's only getting hotter. After winning 3 straight with Kirk Thuggins at helm, starting Q goes down with an Achilles tear. And that same week, Minnesota goes out and get Joshua Dobbs, the Pastronaut. And he, through 2 games, with the help of Scott Stapp and Creed, has gone 2-0. He looks phenomenal. The team looks phenomenal. And their next 3 matchups are going to be coming against the Denver Broncos, Chicago Bears, and Las Vegas Raiders, all of whom, besides the Raiders sitting at 500, are below 500. I think it's hard for anybody, including myself, to see them having a tough time through the remainder of their season. We mentioned this previously. They only have 3 games down the stretch against teams at or above 500. I don't think there's any realm of possibility in which they don't make the playoffs.
I agree. And I think they're going to win these next 3 games. And also, just on Josh Dobbs, how did no other team grab him, especially the Jets? I don't understand why the Jets didn't go after Josh Dobbs, because they could be sitting in the Vikings position. I don't get it. I know he was good for Arizona too, and he comes into Minnesota. The Jets are still believing in Zach Wilson. I just don't get it. I think they should have got him.
Yeah, and I think Robert Saleh is attached at the hip to Zach Wilson right now. I don't know why. There's just something there, some kind of weird chemistry he's got going on. But the Vikings lucked out, and they absolutely stole that guy, and he has been a monster for them thus far. But moving on, our NHL goddess is sitting here, Frankie Noble, and I didn't even know it, but teams who play on an ice rink can still catch fire. Woo!
Absolutely.
That was awesome, wasn't it? That was the best pun you've ever heard in your entire life.
That was ridiculous.
Miss Frankie, you are talking the Canucks, who are drenched in gasoline, lit on fire. What do you got to say about them?
I mean, the Canucks were the joke of the NHL for a while. Nobody thought they could do anything, and this season they've come out absolutely on fire. I mean, you have Quinn Hughes, who started out the season with an awesome quote saying that he doesn't want to see his brothers, Jack and Luke, in the playoffs as he sits on a golf course during the summer. And now he's leading the NHL in goals as a defenseman. He is probably the best defenseman in the league right now, best 2-way defenseman. There's no stopping him. And then you have Elias Pettersson, who's the best forward. Arguably, he leads the NHL in points with 25, and it's still the start of the season. That's absolutely crazy. He's still so young. He has so many years ahead of him, and he's doing absolutely awesome. And then you have Thatcher Demko, who's a top 5 goalie in the NHL. There's no stopping those 3 people. They're on a 10-3-1 record, which is absolutely insane. 11-3-1?
11-3, just won.
Really?
11-3-1.
When did they win?
Yesterday.
Oh. Well.
Ooh.
But, I mean, still, even if they had 10-3-1, that'd still be impressive. But 11-3-1 is even better. I mean, they're absolutely insane. Who thought they would have been in the standings that they are now? They're 4 in the standings? Absolutely crazy. Nobody thought they'd be there.
And I don't mean to rush you through your next one, but we are a bit short on time, so
That's
I
fine.
am going to have you go through it. Your next team happens to be on thin ice.
Oh, man.
So what do you have to say about them?
It would make sense if I said the San Jose Sharks were the worst team in the NHL, but you have to look at the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, you have Connor McDavid, who's the next Gretzky, and he's doing what? And then you have Leon Draisaitl, who's on his side, who's doing what? They just fired their coach, Jay Woodcroft, who everybody praised last year. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. Everyone thought they were going to be amazing this year. They're 3-9-1. That's absolutely embarrassing if you have Connor McDavid on your team. There's no coming back from that. Their only home win was the Heritage Classic, which wasn't even at Rogers. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
They're like the Angels of the NHL, just 2 extraordinary talents and just can't win at all.
Yeah.
Well, at
No,
least
100%.
the Oilers have made the playoffs, so.
But
Yeah, they're not going to make it this year, though.
Miss Maddie and Miss Frankie, I'd like to thank y'all for taking time out of y'all's days to talk some professional sports with me. It has been a pleasure as always. And folks at home, you may want to break out those tissues because we're getting sentimental right after this break. Jack, buddy, why are you here?
I don't really understand why I'm here. I got called a delusional fan. I just don't understand why I'm delusional if I think Kirk Cousins had the best mustache in the league.
Well, Jack, buddy, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I don't think anybody looks cool in handlebars.
But they're back, man. They're back.
They're not. They're not. Sometimes you just got to face the hard truth. It's right there in front of you. All these people, they're calling you delusional, but sometimes you got to worry about, am I projecting? Is it me? And in this
Let me
case,
tell you something, bud. It could never be me. Anything I say is factual and truth, and that's why the Vikings are going 16-1 this year.
organization, you have to look at your roster and say, I've had Kirk O'Thuggins for 6 years. Maybe it's time to move on.
There is no moving on from Kirk Thuggins and Justin Jefferson.
Do you think that maybe this all started just because of a little disappointment?
Nothing has started. This is how I live, and I am not delusional. I'm a prophet.
Here we are again, and joining us now are two distinguished gentlemen, returning from segment 1, the lovely Patrick Brevity, and of course, the walking encyclopedia, football genius, absolute stud of a human being, Justice Covert. Gentlemen, how are we feeling?
I'm happy to talk about some of my fondest sports stories because I was at the Jags game yesterday, and that was pretty bitter. Not good.
Big tough. But a legend of Jacksonville was in attendance, and you'll get to talk about that in just a few minutes. Pat, how are you feeling?
Still doing great from segment 1, man.
Dove, I love it. I love it. And y'all know the rules. I better not catch either of y'all talking during independent reading time. So I'm going to kick things off by painting a picture. It's early 2018. It's a humid evening in Tampa, Florida. And I'm at a friend's house, a man who bleeds purple and gold, an absolute electric factory who goes by the name of Scott Edelbach. We're watching the divisional round of the NFC playoffs. We saw the New Orleans Saints travel to Minnesota to take on Scotty's Vikings. And this guy was absolutely bouncing off the walls. Super Bowl was to be held in Minnesota that year, so it was a huge deal for all Minnesota fans. And although I'm not a Minnesota fan per se, it's impossible to root against the Vikings with a guy like Scotty in the room. So Minnesota turns the ball over late in the game, and my dad ushers me and my brother back home from his house. And right when we get home, quite disappointed, might I add, I walk inside, walk towards my room, I hear my dad flip on the TV. So I stop and pause for a second, and what do I hear but Keenum steps into it. Diggs, sideline. Oh my God. It was amazing. And then not even 2 minutes later, I hear a horn honking outside. Somebody drives over my grass, almost hits my house, and Scotty comes running in, kicks my door open, and starts going berserk in my living room. It was unthinkable. It was one of my favorite memories. I don't think I'm ever going to forget the look on his face. But it's one of those, I don't know what the word is.
Moments?
Yeah, moments, but there was a meme about it. I don't remember what it was called. But anyways, it was a legendary play, a legendary call, and overall just a moment that I'll never forget. But Mr. Justice Covert, I understand that you had a similar experience regarding a play, but you were actually in attendance.
Yeah, flashback to 2010, November 14th, so we're nearing the 13th year anniversary of it. The Texans and Jaguars had a pretty phenomenal game going up to it. I don't remember anything about the game until the actual play. But looking back into it, the Texans had like a 2-minute drive to like take the lead. And on a third down with no timeouts left, they threw the ball and they fumbled it. So the Jaguars got it at midfield. They had an 8-yard route. They had an offsides penalty, got them a little closer. But then David Garrard, strong-arm QB, chucks it up to Mike Sims-Walker just for whatever reason. It tips off of Glover Quinn. Mike Thomas catches it, and the whole place went nuts. When the ball was in the air, time kind of stopped a little bit. But, after it tipped off Mike Sims-Walker and it went into Mike Thomas's hands, the whole crowd erupted. It was definitely one of the best atmospheres I've ever had at a Jaguars game.
And you know what one of the best parts about that was during that highlight, I could hear the call with no audio.
Oh, yeah.
Ball knocked down. Oh,
Mike
he got
Sims
it.
Walker.
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
he got it.
Oh, he got
Gus
it.
Johnson couldn't
Oh,
have been
my
a better
God.
commentator from that moment.
Oh, my God. So, the best moments in sports all have a little atmosphere of the call. The call
Yeah,
can always make or break a play, and in both cases, they made the play. But moving forward, Mr. Patrick Previty, you've got a college football story time, and if I'm not mistaken, this happens to be a bowl game, correct?
Yes, the Outback Bowl at Raymond James Stadium. I used to go all the time as a kid with my family, and my mom went to South Carolina, so she's a big Gamecock fan. And and they were in town. They played Michigan, and we were like, we gotta go, we gotta go see this game. And we maybe witnessed probably the greatest hit maybe in football history. I don't know. I might be like over exaggerating, but Jadeveon Clowney absolutely just knocked this dude out. His helmet went flying, and then he somehow was able to pick up the ball, palmed it with one hand, and try to even run for a little bit of extra yardage. Just one of the greatest plays I'd ever seen in person. I was actually shocked. I was 11 years old at the time, so I'd never seen anything like that. I'd never seen a man murdered on the field of play, and so it was great to see. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a gladiator sport almost.
Yeah.
And that got Jadeveon Clowney paid
Yeah.
that hit.
Oh, yeah.
He was the number one pick the following year, I
Yeah.
believe. And his senior year wasn't even all that good. He played like 6 games.
Yeah.
But that hit just like absolutely just skyrocketed his reputation.
That hit though was just aggression building on aggression. That previous play, I believe, was a fourth down.
Yeah, Carolina.
And there was that really controversial call where they put the note card down in between the ball and the marker, and there was more than enough space for a note card.
Yeah, and I
they
believe
happened to give him a first
I believe
down.
it was Steve Spurrier, who was the head coach of South Carolina at the time. He was freaking out, but that led to like an even better call when I think the commentator was like, South Carolina deserves the ball, and they get it. So yeah, just he's a legend for that. Yeah.
And I remember like the stadium, even like and during bowl games usually, like you'll have some fans travel and everything like that, but it's usually just people going there to enjoy the game, enjoy the college football game. The stadium just like erupted. Like no matter who you were rooting for, it was just such a crazy hit. It was just like, oh my gosh! Like everybody just went collectively like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So that's one of my best memories, I think.
Yeah. And gentlemen, real quick, has any other memory come close to what you've shared?
Well, actually, in the 2010 season with the Jaguars, there was a 59-yard field goal that Josh Scobie hit to win the game against the Peyton Manning-led Colts. That was kind of surreal. But probably on television, I'd say the closest thing to that euphoric experience I felt with the Texans' Hail Mary was Jorge Soler's Game 6 home run for the Braves in 2021 that clinched their World Series. Me and my dad were celebrating so hard that we actually changed the channel on the TV. We were jumping around so much. So, that's probably the closest I felt. Those are probably in my top 3.
Well, I mean, gentlemen, story time has always been and always will be one of the best segments on Combine. I really hope to do this again because I actually had a lot of fun with this. I think this could be awesome to do in the future. But Mr. Patrick Previty, Mr. Justice Covert, I'd like to thank you both for joining me. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to come and watch us talk some sports. Unfortunately, the Combine will not be airing next week, but check back on Hitting the Field Network as we have an incredible trivia show being put together. It's going to be awesome. And the following week, same time, same place as usual, we will have the Combine Tuesdays at noon. I have been your host, Ty Patton, and from all of HTF, have a most wonderful week and an excellent Thanksgiving. Have a good one. Love y'all.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.